Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. And we're here today with special guest, Brent Bruning, who's here to share with us his new book, The Power in Your Hands. Embark on a journey to discover your life's patterns. 100 remarkable people open their hands to reveal the ancient art of palmistry. So, did you know your hands hold information that can empower your life? Well, today, Brent Bruning's here to share just that. Brent Bruning is a certified master hand analyst, author, and transformational coach with over 20,000 hands read, including celebrities like Snoop Dogg, Gwen Stefani, Beyonce, Tony Robbins, Ben Stiller, and many more. Through his master hand analysis, Bruning deciphers the greatness you carry within yourself and the life passions you are looking to discover. In his new book, The Power in Your Hands, he decodes the secrets your hands hold, creates a map for your true life calling, and teaches the neural map to your nervous system so you can live a life of greatness. So let's welcome to the show, Brent Bruning.
Well, thank you, Marianne. And it's great. It's just a great opportunity to be able to have this forum to announce this research that has been largely secret for the past 40 years and only reserved to medical libraries if you could understand what they were saying. And so this is going to be a groundbreaking discussion. And I'm so pleased that you are the person that is going to be the conduit of this information out in the world.
Well, I'm so delighted we get to spend this time together. And my goodness, I mean, when people talk about being able to read your hands and really understand what's going on there, why don't you share a little bit about your inspiration behind writing The Power in Your Hands?
Sure. So I am a graduate from an organization called the International Institute of Hand Analysis. And for basically 30 years, there has been an empirical research of people's life pattern through the hands. This was founded by Richard Unger, who had this epiphany while he was working with dermatoglyphic patterns and the research around it, that when you organize people by fingerprint patterns, you start to see life patterns. In other words, within your hands is an ancestral pattern that can be seen and related to the problems that your ancestors experienced, and you have kind of the same tendencies. So if somebody has scarcity issues running through the entire family, you can see where the scarcity issue is literally in a fingerprint pattern. So you can see people with the money issues or people with abuse issues and transgenerational trauma. So when you organized all these fingerprints, at that point, when he had this discovery, he had about 10,000 people's hands. And so he organized them, and voila, you see all the people who have felt this craving to be artists, and they all had circles on their right ring fingers, and all these people that were feeling like they don't belong and they're in constant transit and with another pattern on their thumb called an arch. And so I got really fascinated with this. And so I became an understudy of Richard Unger. And over the time since 2007, I have been in pretty heavy research to validate what he discovered. So my mission has been to get a book out called The Power in Your Hands, where you can understand what has been previously very, very guarded by the Institute, because obviously that is how they're seeing that it's very guarded information. But now with the permission, we are now able to release this to the public, that you can see life pattern information in the hands.
I think that's so exciting to have this information, because you hear how just unique our fingerprints are. So I would think that it has so much more that goes beyond just the fingerprint.
Yes. So traditionally, if you look at people's lines in their hands, that's an area that belonged to palmistry. And I am not a palmist. I'm a hand analyst. So I'm really drawing a distinction here that we're working with neurologists and research about how the brain and the hand form together. So if you can imagine that you have three stages of your evolution in your brain, you've got this reptilian brain, and if you look at the first 7 weeks of your hand, then it's just a palm. It's like a reptilian fin, and then after 7 weeks, there's this idea that the soul comes into your body, or if you're a scientist, you would say the building blocks of consciousness. Potato, right? It is the feeling is now being introduced into the body. It's a pattern. It's a pattern of consciousness because that's what feeling is. And through those patterns, you can see patterns in the hand. And this, where we now do borrow from about 2,000 years of palmistry, there is that since the time of the Greeks, they've been saying that there's a blueprint that you can see in the hand. And they had a very poetic name, calling the big, strong, pointing, directing finger that we've been for 400,000 years directing. If that is a representation of your life, then somebody who has a big, strong index finger, you can say, well, they're very alpha. And this is true. It doesn't take much for you to see this. Just organize all your friends by handprints and look at all the big index fingers and you'll see it. But what Aristotle was saying is an ancient system is now independently being verified by all the neuroscience. If you have an evening with ChatGPT, check it out. So you can see that there are life patterns of people and their personalities. And you can see that different people with different hands have different lives, but the more similar your hand is to another person's hand, then you can say that you have found closer and closer your biological twin. And so when you look at biological twins, you get these really great stories, right? Of like the Jim twins that were back in the 60s discovering that they had a twin brother, and when they were in their late 30s and they drive over state lines and one twin sees his same car parked in the driveway. Both their wives were named Linda. They had divorced a woman previously named Betty. Both their sons were named James Allen. They both had love for stock car racing. They had woodsheds in their backyard making these cute little toy houses, and they both smoked cigarettes, and they had jobs in law enforcement, and on and on. So you see this like really radical pattern. And that was a thing that has been in all these really fun documentaries, right? That the twins do that. Actually, no, human beings do that. And human beings are in patterns. And you may not have a biological twin to compare. However, if I looked at those Jim twins, I would see the exact same fingerprints, the same lines, and any derivative of those lines, you would say they've gone on into a different path. So I've been testing this for the last, since 2007, and I have been verifying by getting random handprints of people that I think are inspiring, right? Like I live in Switzerland, so it's a great little cosmos of all these fascinating people. So I get the highest ranking general, the most famous, world famous clown. And then ultimately it gets international. So I'm getting Eminem, and I'm getting, Ben Stiller, and then the theological advisor to the Pope. And I'm being escorted by the Swiss Guard, where they used to, kill palmists, several hundred years ago. And now I'm a hand analyst coming in, having a conversation through the Swiss Guards, through the theological advisor to the Pope, to talk about the soul pattern in the fingerprints. And what I was doing is I was asking them, what is your life purpose? What is your challenge that you've had your whole life? What is something that you can't seem to, there's a pain you carry. You don't know why, but you still wrestle with it as much as you did when you were 18. Right? Those are life patterns. And when I take the handprint, I would shuffle it with an astronaut or a shoemaker or an Oscar-winning film director or a horror film director, and I would give it to two people within the Institute so I could do something of a double test. And they had no idea where I was. They had a handprint. And to a untrained eye, you would just go, well, that's just a handprint. I see a hand. But they're seeing a complete nebula of information of artistic urge and power struggles and difficulties and how they're trying to resolve this dilemma and ultimately in a story arc like you would see in the movie. And in that, they were able to guess every time. I gave 100 tests and they were able to guess the same life purpose that they said. They were able to guess how they were in the relationship. I gave like these things like, how are you in a relationship? Are you the caring, loving, connecting one? Are you reserved, private, loyal, etc.? I gave them a lot of different options and they would give the same answer in the same balance. Oh, I'm a little bit caring, but I'm also a little bit passionate. So they were able to get that cocktail just right, what that person is based on a heart line. So at the biggest breakthrough of this is that what has been previously said about self-esteem, that is something, a part of your beliefs, is in fact a contraction within your nervous system. So no amount of belief clearing is going to make a difference when you're contracted. And those contractions are seen in the contracted fingerprints. And when you can see that and you can see, wow, that contracted pattern results in relationship drama forever until you become conscious of it and then you break through. The other big thing is that there's a life purpose. We all have it and something God gave us because there's no purposeful explanation of how two parents can get together and create a destiny for a child other than they try to create the best circumstances. But when the fingerprints are formed, when you understand that there's a direct relationship between the life purpose and the way we see it from that map that's on the hand and wherever that circle is on your fingerprint, that's saying that's a bullseye. We need to go there. And you double blind test that with somebody and just ask, what's your life purpose if you are in fact happy and fulfilled and you're considered the best in your field? And they say, my life purpose is to be an artist. And you give that, you'll see they match 1-to-1. So that was the whole point of the book, The Power in Your Hands, is that I was interviewing these people. And then with no knowledge, I was showing the actual result of the analysis, and you can compare them side by side. And you can see Eminem's power struggles as well as his craving to be an artist. You can look at Einstein. You can look at the astronaut that we have in Switzerland, and on and on and on. And it's like a butterfly collection of humanity of people's lives. Now, why would you care? Is that you're hopefully listening to Marianne because you are fascinated in the development of your life, that you want to have some sense of ownership and command of your destiny and have a better time. Hand analysis is like looking at a functional MRI. In fact, the last neuroscientist that went through the program of getting a hand analysis and then me showing him how to adjust the pattern, that guy said this was the equivalent of 3 years of psychotherapy. And I'm not trying to be a psychotherapist. What I am telling you is there's a map. Once you understand it, you have command of your life and you have clarity of what turns you on. And you don't need all of the things traditionally that medical science is saying. That they're saying, yeah, you need to be able to have all these drugs in order to feel better. My experience is that when you understand your life pattern, what you're doing is switching on your God-given ability to have dopamine, serotonin, and an experience that is rewarding because that's how you're wired. And if your parents conditioned you in another direction or society, you're not going to feel fulfilled. A marriage can shut that down. A job can shut that down. And when I can show you, all you have to do is do this. You can still keep your day job, but do this. And that will help you feel alive and fulfilled. And when you know that, what you see from, if you go to my site, thepowerinyourhands.com, you'll see some before after photos of people that look like they lost about 10 years of their age. And now I believe, and I would like to forward this to anyone who may be listening, who understands about reverse aging, that there is a relationship here. Why? Let me show you. Let me show you. I have over 100 people who have gone through a full transformation just following their life purpose. And within 3 weeks, you don't even recognize them. They look completely clear of their depression, their inflammation that they're carrying. And I have a good explanation of how that all works. But the short version is, if you're off track, you're stressed. And stress is the leading cause of age. And stress and inflammation create water retention, which ultimately leads to the precursor of several diseases. If you can understand the root of that is you, and the experiences that you think are painful actually are debilitating, and it's a dis-ease in you. And if I can show you where you're meant to thrive and what you're made to, you get out of that dumb pattern and you can transform it. That was a long answer, but then you can kind of see, it's been a bit of a journey. So it's kind of hard to just like say one thing, right? Because you're looking at somebody's life pattern and being able to completely alter it in a way that's much more fulfilling.
I think that's so empowering, being able to make choices and changes that could really impact one's life, especially when we come to, you talk about life purpose. So many people I hear go, well, I don't know what my life purpose is, and they struggle to find it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that life purpose is that I need to have a corner office, or that I need to have family, or I need to be famous. What you need to understand is that when we're looking at the fingerprints, we're combining it with your personal talents that we see in your own gifts. And so certain people have a good way to describe this is certain people are just born into a life of analysis and intellect. We call that the air tribe. I use earth, air, fire, and water, and not because I'm borrowing from astrology. It's just really useful as a template to describe these personality types. So when you look at it, somebody who's super airy, you're looking at really long fingers, long palm. They if you look and close your fist, it looks like a brain. Well, that where the fingers are wrapping around is where we're seeing the prefrontal cortex activity. So somebody who's got really long fingers, we would say is a philosopher, right? Spending a lot of time in their head. So when you have gifts of being rational and intellectual and smart, we don't want to take you out of that game. But within that tribe of the people with your hands, there are artists, and they express their artistry differently. And there are people who have another fingerprint that are accountants. There's another one to be project leaders, and Richard Branson. And there's the Elvis Presleys out there. There's also difficult patterns of people who have long fingers, long palm, like Jeffrey Dahmer, right? And you can see those different fingerprint patterns of suffering and how they go into a place called their shadow side. So knowing both of these areas, not that I'm going to turn you into Jeffrey or have you think that you have anything related to that, but you have to understand is that is his behavior as a serial killer is explainable because of his detachment and his rationality. You have other people that are way more emotional, and they have a very soft, slender hand because if you ever looked at your hand when you had to speak in front of a large audience, you might have noticed there's a lot of sweat coming out of that. Those are your emotions. And if you leave behind any sweat, the FBI knows exactly what experience you were going through because they can see the cocktail of neurotransmitters that you have. So when you look at that, you can see there are different skills. Some people are more feminine. And you look at their hand and they go, wow, those are wetter hands in general. And this hand is more intellectual. And this one's like built like a truck, 3 main lines in it, practically. Right. So though they have all different talents and they have different lives. So trying to get a farmer to go and run CERN physicist is never going to happen. Right. And a CERN physicist has never taken his half naked body and put it on Instagram the way Kendall Jenner does and all the other women that have very slender hands. So you're looking at completely different comfort zones for these people based on the hand that ultimately reveals a life story. And in that life story, there's a satisfying version for you and a dissatisfying. And when you understand that you're stuck in a pattern, probably what my guess, this is my experience, and Switzerland's considered one of the most highly rated happy places on the planet. It's like one of the 5th happiest cities, best places to live. 80% of the people are in their shadow. That means they're running an automatic pattern and they're not evolving. They're not growing. They're not happy. They're just doing something that they're good at and going on autopilot, and they have no fulfillment in their life. So if I can reduce that shadow pattern in you from 80% to 50 to 30, you're going to see it on your face. You're going to see it all over your body. You're going to see it in your whole experiences, like you just got back from Hawaii. So that's the groundbreaking research that we're seeing now, is that you don't have to, you can forget, in my opinion, most of the self-help industry, because most of it, including all the books, are really great while you're reading them. But then you can frisbee the book afterwards, because all it did is bring you into a temporary state of mind, because you have a biological tendency to exhibit or enter a state of consciousness. And if I can show you that, then I can show you how to evolve it. So it's not about transformation and belief clearing. That we are in a state of evolution right now. And that code is in your hands.
So if someone wants to see about learning more about getting their hands, have a print done and having you walk through on how to make these adjustments and changes, is that something that you do?
Exactly. So what they do is you go to thepowerinyourhands.com and you send in photos of your hands. Literally, you just walk out with your iPhone or your Samsung and you just take close-ups of your fingers facing the sun, so I can see your fingerprint patterns and your thumb, and then the rest of your hand, a full shot of your hand. You'll get instructions when you book a 2-hour hand analysis. And then what I do is I prepare the diagram. And then I show what are you made? What is a gift that you have and how do you combine these gifts to be in your really happy place? And what are the triggers that bring you into contraction, that have you go into the fight flight response or freeze if it's long enough and it becomes traumatic? And then how are you going to get out of it when you're in it? And what percentage are you in it? Right? So then you go into the place of your exalted self. So after you go into your gifts, you go into your shadow, and then you go into your exalted self. The exalted self is, what would it mean if you mature in an area that has within your family been a very difficult pattern? If you have had years where we don't talk about feelings in the family, or years where we don't know how to argue without shouting, and going into years of going into self-esteem issues and always feeling not good enough, how would you break that through? And my answer will not be more learning. My answer will be, there's a specific emotion that you don't like any more than I liked my mom's Brussels sprouts. And she used to make them like once every month. And so if I can show you there's an emotion there and then how to feel it, you'll see the value of it. And then out of that experience, you'll break through. And that is where I'm getting all these people coming and going through this process that we have called the shift, which is to go into a deep process to evolve this painful problem that they keep running into their whole life. And that's done. The hand analysis blueprint we do in 2 hours, and we record it over Zoom. So you don't have to be in Switzerland. You have to fly over to see me. You just send in photos of your hands, and then you can schedule a call. And then over the 2 hours, I'll walk you through.
Well, I think a lot of people are hoping to go to Switzerland, but that works too. You know,
Come visit me once. I'm near Zurich.
Well, and so you go in your book, you discuss the 12 different types of energy. And I'd love for you to explain a couple of those for us. I know we've been kind of going through what some of this is, but you know, as I was going through your book, I was just so impressed by how many celebrities and just noted people have been reaching out to you and working with you. And you'd think that all these people would just be as happy as can be, but there's always something that we can learn and improve upon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the psyche is constructed in four main parts, according to the Greeks, if we're going to use this system of earth, air, fire, and water, right? So you got a body that wants to be nourished, and you have a soul, or you have feelings that want to feel that life is magical, right? You have a mind, air, that's very intellectual, wants to learn, wants to give us a lot of space. And then you have a spirit that wants to be on fire and motivated. The longer that you're on fire with anything, you start to develop fiery lines all over your hands. The more that you become intellectual, you start to get long fingers, long lines. The more sensitive and emotional you become, you start to get, your skin gets softer and you start to get slender fingers. And the more down to earth and practical you are, you get a broader palm. You got these four hand types, right? What you're seeing is that person finds safety hanging out in their body, in reality, in their circumstances, on earth, earthy, right? Versus being in their head, hanging out with ideas. But every human being has all four elements. It's just that because of the way that we develop personalities, we are finding our comfort zone in one area a little bit more than the other. And that creates a pattern in our life, right? So that's why we see all you walk into an air-conditioned office, you're going to see tons of people with long fingers, right? You go into another place out in the country, and the further you go out in the country, you're going to see bigger and broader hands, especially if you go to Arkansas. So what you're looking there is then these people that find truth, their truth on a biological level happens to be in one of those four energies, but they can be unmotivated and on fire. They can be intellectual just the same way, and they can be feeling if they have a couple drinks, right? But what you're seeing then is archetypes of personality. So if you try to explain to somebody from a personality test, wow, you feel a lot like an INFJ, Myers-Briggs. You feel like an ENTP. Right? Nobody's going to know. You're not going to recognize your mother from that. And we tried to do these tests to try to figure out what was the best way to describe human beings. And trying all these psychometric tests didn't work because it works only one direction. If I give you 100 answers of something that your mother take, you wouldn't recognize her from those answers. So, but you do recognize if I said, this is a very controlling woman who has a strong need to be right all the time with a strong sense of prudence and so forth, who's on a mission in her life to do as much as she can for as many people. At least you've narrowed down that woman from the people you might know. So that language that we use to make that is using these crucial elements called earth, air, fire, and water. And it's not esoterically, it's something Carl Jung was using to develop these psychological systems. It's just he went off a little bit off script. And so there was a movement in the 60s of a very small group of people, Tamil Day Young, who, and a historian and a mathematician, that went and said, look, that Carl Jung is going off on dreamland. Let's go into back to the way the Greeks saw it. If you have earth, you must have something second. Maybe it's water second. Maybe that's your secondary element. And then you have the other two, right? So if you're earth, water, we would say all the people with a big square hand, earth, but with really soft skin, water. They're very super soft and compassionate. Marianne, I can, without even seeing your hand, I know you have that hand type. And then there's other people who have short fingers, fire, with really long palms and long hands, air. They're really jokers, Jim Carrey, right? And so they're using an energy within their humanity, and they're focused on that. Can they grow up? Absolutely. When I show you how to get more fire, air energy, or water, fire energy, or all those things, what you're doing is finding your Hawaii. You're finding your place of happiness. Otherwise, you're stuck in a pattern of seeing it and all the time. So there's ways that you can balance these energies. And when you do, your life thrives. It really does, because most of the time when you're in your shadow, you're operating on 20% of your energy. The rest of it has to keep that show of contraction up. So if I can reduce it, then you're going to feel totally energetic, like you're reborn.
I appreciate you going into that, because it seems a lot of times people, when they look at shadow work, they also think that that might be, well, that's negative, as opposed to maybe that's just a phase that they're going through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the shadow is, I'll give you the definition that we use from the Institute of Hand Analysis. Shadow is just an automatic pattern. It is designed to keep you safe. So who doesn't want safety in their life, right? No way would I ever want to get rid of your shadow. So what it is essentially you get stressed. You go into, if you understand vagal nerve, if you've heard about that, there's a vagus nerve that runs through your whole body that regulates whether you're going to be freaked out and aggressive, or you're going to be relaxed and asleep, right? Whether the sympathetic system is going to be activated or the parasympathetic. And if you're, let's say, you're going into the activated state, that means that life is getting exciting. You know, people demonize this shadow side a lot. But, you know, we're not in a Disney story here on Earth. We're in a very real Tarantino type film, right? Maybe not as extreme as Tarantino, but, you know, there's a contrast, there's a complexity to the characters that are in our lives. And that is because life is exciting, and that's the sympathetic nervous system. But when you go too much into it, then the amygdala, it's called amygdala hijacking. And when you go further from the place where you think you can have power in your life to you can't, then, and you're in a sympathetic state, you're hijacked. And the longer you're in it, then you're going to go into a freeze response, and then you're going to go into a habit response of detachment around things. We just don't talk about that thing anymore. I don't talk to her anymore because she activated and triggered me, and so I have a freeze. What happened to your nervous system when you did that is that's an emotion not in your sister. It's in you. And guess what? You detached from you. And so you said that your anger is not something you want to be with, even though certainly, you know, she made you angry, of course. But we that's how you think, but it's actually you made you angry. You made yourself feel like you don't like to be around the sister, and you detach from that emotion. Okay, when you've done that, you said that part of your nervous system is now off limits. And anytime that I try to go into that, you're going to get anxious. So you're now going to create an electric fence around that experience in your fascia tissue. And you might even keep the tension up in your muscle. And over time, that thing's going to get hardened. And over time, that's going to be the way life is. And your sister is that way. We just don't talk anymore. And that's what life is. So once you do that, that part of your life is now in the shadow. You have suppressed all joy, all fun, all evolution in favor of safety, so that you can be in your little smaller world. So when you can go into those responses again, that's where the therapy comes in. That's an all-you-can-eat buffet of what's keeping the psychotherapy profession alive. Is going into those things and reviving all of the things that you were frozen and shut down and felt helpless and depressed. And then you don't go directly to happiness. You go back to being angry and excited again. And then you ultimately move to a release state. You know? So these areas that you're seeing in the way that you language your life, your stories in your life are languaged from that contraction. So if you're having a great time, I'll give you a good example. You're having a great time. You're going to pick your girlfriends up from the airport, and you have a whole weekend planned. All right. So, and then somebody cuts you off in traffic, and then traffic slows down and on the way back, but your tension's on that, and you slow down and you're going, okay, so what are we going to do when we get to the hotel? And so you're in this kind of different mindset. The same events are around you, right? But you're telling a different story. Now, switch it. You're late. Her flight got canceled. You're now coming back and you're frustrated and somebody cuts you off in traffic. And while you're repeating that you're not enough and you got rejected and the world is not fair, you're going to tell a different interpretation. And now that car is every reason why your life doesn't work too. And people continue that story on and on and on into a victim story that can last years. While you do that, you are shutting down, you're creating a habit of complaint within your nervous system. And eventually you shut down or you say, that's the way it is. That's the shadow side. So that while you do anything for 28 days, right, it then becomes a habit. Right? What happens? You've been complaining about your sister for 4 years, right? So at some point, you don't even know you're doing it anymore. It doesn't even occur as something to investigate. Your sister is the way she is. But to other people, they have a different experience because they haven't gone lockstep into the shadow side. But you can evolve that. That's the amazing part. So when I show you that you have this lockstep pattern to judge in this particular region, judge yourself, judge her, when that gets activated, you create a story like that. And I can show it to you. Then once you understand underneath the root cause of it, the whole thing unravels, like literally unravels in hours. You don't have to go through 3 years of psychotherapy. It unravels in hours. And then the whole person feels so revived and you're like, oh my gosh, I can clear things up. And sure enough, they get a new sister when for years it was a bad sister or a bad parent, right? And a bad relationship with money. So I've made, over the last year, I've made several multimillionaires. Now, I don't know anything about catheter bags on an iPhone or how to market lotion to the 5-star hotels. That one neuroscience had another side job doing that. But if I can reduce your shadow where you're shut down, you're going to take more risk because it's funner. It's just you're in a more enjoyable place. But when you're in a guarded position, you don't take risks and you don't even see opportunities. You only see that life is unfair and you keep telling that story. I'm saying life is unfair for one particular fingerprint. You might have another one that says I'm not enough. Another one that says everything's my fault. Another fingerprint that says that I can't be seen. Another one that says nobody listens to me and everyone ignores me. Another one says I have a fear of failure. Different patterns. But I can tell you that's not anything that is just for interpretation. I give you this pattern. If you read the book, you'll be able to see it yourself. And if I give your handprint to another person from the Institute, it's not going to be like an astrology reading where something is being channeled intuitively. If you have that pattern, they're going to say the exact same thing.
I think it's absolutely remarkable how this can unwind years of negativity and blockage and finally get to this place where we can really see things differently and have that huge shift in perspective.
Yeah, it's the way that we started to see this, what really wasn't my intention, but what happened was we were reading people's life pattern, and the experience is so accurate when you do it that people were just crying in their hands going, you got me, now what? So the pain of seeing this over and over from my own self-development and knowing that I never wanted any analysis to be perceived as a way to make yourself wrong. So it was out of a responsibility with this information that we wanted this to be used in an empowering way. That's the reason why it's been guarded, because you can imagine, there was this whole movement back years ago. Even the founder of dermatoglyphics went into eugenics, and that was a story. And, all the things that happened in World War II, we don't want anything wrong happening to the way that people are able to organize biological information, right? That's why everything is so guarded there. But if I can show you that these patterns are your path to an empowering life, and I can show you how that and give a voice to the pain and bring compassion and kindness to what you have gone through without having any agenda, just a voice. Something begins to open up and move really deeply in you. And underneath that, you get to the core of the wound, which is a wound you had at 7 weeks as a fetus. So when you're looking at a baby, they have fingerprints, and those fingerprints and their triggers were at 7 weeks, right? So no reading or listening or doing meditation with Joe Dispenza. God bless him, because he's amazing for his and being able to explain it. But what I have many people coming from this region, Joe Dispenza, Tony Robbins, Mind Valley, all the other areas of coaching, and including people that have been in, God forbid, 3 years of psychotherapy, and they can write a PhD on how they're wrong. And I find that very abusive to human beings, to give so much education without the transformation. All that does is give them more information. And I can tell you, there's all the information to make my wife wrong, but there's no transformation in that. It just makes me right. And you can be really, really right about your sister and right about the experience in your life. But if I can show you that the way that you developed that story in the first place was because you have this whole issue around anger, and you have a high sensitivity, and you don't know how to handle that. And if I can show you how to be with it, then something begins to emerge of a new life, a new chapter in your life with your sister, or with your relationship with money, or you being an entrepreneur, finally getting out of the job to move into this place with security, because you're now having eyes to see instead of always going into an interpretation that is so habit forming. And that's a habit forming, or let's say an epigenetic pattern that is inherited from your parents. God bless them, and grandmother, for all the things they gave you, and the blue eyes and brown hair, as well as their whole issue with money. And so when you can see that, and you can see you can go, I've done whole family constellations, and you can see, in fact, that's a very common thing for me. Every week I'm working with a mother and the children, and you can see these patterns, and you can see, oh my God, well, what have I passed on to my kids? But you have to be compassionate that we all have some pain. And what you can do is just help them be kind to it. Their reaction, that there's a place where they get more activated than other people, and you can help them grow in tolerance and expansion, just like going to a gym. You can train your consciousness. And this is a little bit of a workout of your consciousness, but you have to get to the root of it.
Part that I like about this is that there's so much science and information to back this up. It's not wishful thinking or meditative practices, although I enjoy those as well. But it gives so much information on, okay, if you have these types of palms, then these are things that you need to look at and work on.
That's right. And by the way, I am absolutely, I would champion everyone to meditate. And the reason why is because you're putting a buffer to the trigger. You're putting you're turning the volume down. So whatever experience you have, at least nothing is an option. So if you can be with nothing every day for 45 minutes, an hour, and be able to create a relationship to the divine, then the divine is with you. And if you can have one foot in the divine and one in your life, that means that you can always be with nothing. And nothing's a choice rather than an immediate activated of something. And so absolutely meditate. And that does bring, and that's where Joe Dispenza and all the other stuff. I just got back from a Hindustani festival, right? Swamis are getting their hands read to get the life pattern, because they're seeing karmic pattern issues, as well as what is something divine. That there's different types of yogas that you can see through the hands, and that would be very good for you. A yoga of service, a yoga of love. and connection. So it's just based on what language you want to use right there. But I guarantee whatever affiliation that you have, the hand analysis is quite neutral to that. It's just a pattern. It shows you get triggered in these areas. You got your toolkit. I'll show you from my experience from interviewing people since 2007 about what I've noticed, how these people with your fingerprints and your hands, how do they make the big breakthroughs? How do you do it? I'm always learning it.
Do you work with couples as well? I understand you were talking about working with mother and their children, but how about couples?
Yes. So you'll see on the site, there's a couple reading. And why that's really important is that, especially if you're in a relationship where you're looking at a long-term commitment, you might want to have some edification around the shadow side and how you can deal with the shadow side. See, the shadow side is the autonomous nervous system, and it's an autonomous pattern, automatic pattern, right? So if you can understand the language and the way that somebody acts when they are in their pattern, and when they act, when they're out of the triggered state, you'll have hope. A lot of couples only see their shadow side because they're bringing their shadow side all the time. They're highly activated, and it's the unstoppable force meeting the immovable object in relationships. So if I can show you, look, this is triggering, gentle here, okay? And this is triggering to you. And when you do this, you're not the best person to be with. And when you get this, I can show you exactly how you act when you're in your shadow pattern, as well as what you're wanting in life. And there you can see how two people have different fingerprints, but you'll see what is united between them. And then you can see, gosh, we both love arts. Let's go into that. Let's complement the fact that you're there to be the supportive one, and I'm there to be fun. And when I get activated, I get a little bit crazy. And when you get activated, you build a castle wall. If you can develop that language there, then you can see how the couple then can go forward into a life of love and joke about it and be silly and be gentle and fun about it. Not be so significant. You're in the shadow. How can I help? And not make it into, oh my God, is this what I married for the next 30 years? I got to be with this. I got to be with this person acting this way 80%. Yeah. What can you do to bring it down to 50? Let me show you. Let me show you how to get it down to nothing. That's fun. That's a good conversation. And what I do is I map out both couples' hands, and then we look at the gestalt picture of the alliance between that couple. What is it that they're doing and moving in a mission in this life? How they bring out the best qualities. What can they do to bring out the best qualities? As well as what they can do to rub each other wrong. Don't do that, right? Honor, respect the other person as the human being and accept that they have these things, because you're not going to be able to change their fingerprints, but it's up to them to take ownership and responsibility of their shadow side. And some couples, to be honest, there's usually a partner that just does not want to develop. Fine. Accept that. Accept that they're going to want to be in their shadow side 80% because they just want to read the newspaper and just be in their world. Fine. Just get that that's where they want to be, and nothing wrong with it. Just doesn't make for fun conversation when they're emptying the dishwasher and acting that way, right?
Well, it definitely is. I found that your book, The Power in Your Hands, is really, in many ways, like the roadmap to life that none of us really got on birth, on how to just be better people and really enjoy life.
Yeah. In fact, I've self-published this, right? When it took me years, 2007, I rewrote this book 12 years, right? Apparently that's a spiritual process, according to the guru who blessed the book. You can go to my website and you can buy it. You can even go on Amazon, though it's sold out on Amazon. But go to my website and go first, get your hands read. That's more important. Then understand from that, if you want to understand how, if you're a therapist or if you're somebody that wants to understand the life pattern deeper, it's a very easy, it's a full colored coffee table book. It's like twice the size of a normal book, and it's fully glossy and filled with images so that you can get it. I don't want you to believe anything. I want you to see. Look at these alpha people with the big index finger. Look at these people with these long headlines. Look how thoughtful they are. Look at all these passionate people with heart lines that swoop up to the middle finger. These are areas where it developed when you first develop your facial expression. They have nothing to do with the way that you bend your hands. It's all rooted in the way that your brain develops with, or your hand develops with your brain and your nervous system. And when you know that, you have a really great architect or understanding or language of your personal architecture, far beyond astrology, human design, EPQR, Myers-Briggs. This is you. This is very unique to you, your original biological pattern. And it's something responsible just to know. When people go, well, oh my gosh, what am I going to find out? Right? What if I see something I don't like? I guarantee you, you know it. You may not know that I know it, but you know it. And when I put a voice and I put a weight, I'm going to show you exactly how to deal with it. That's the beauty of it. And where is its weight through the whole system, and how to love yourself more.
My goodness, Brent. I mean, we can talk for hours. I just found your work to be so impactful and so empowering. I understand that you have webinars every Sunday.
Yes, thanks for asking. If you go to my site, thepowerinyourhands.com, you'll see on just below the hand analysis, there's these 3 icons. You can take a little quiz, and you can also get a 15-minute trial. Just send me a photo, and I'll give you a taste of what we cover in the hand analysis, and if that's useful for you. And then there's this idea of the webinar. It's 2 p.m. on New York time, 11 in the morning, California on Sunday. Every Sunday, I go and walk through the examples, give you a deeper look at how the neuroscience works. And you send in your hands, and I'll even show you a few things in your hands, hopefully to whet your appetite to understand that this is a real phenomenon. It's not something that I'm just trying to cold read. I'm showing you examples of who you are. So what you do is you register, you send in a photo of your hands, you show us, and then you attend on a Zoom call that I have on the Sundays. And I'd love if your listeners could come and just check it out. It's the easiest, it's free, and you'll at least understand deeper a phenomenon if you're interested in how this works, as well as what your hands show. I'll already tell a few things, and you'll see some things for yourself, and how I'm able to see other people. And I guess traumas, I guess people that are orphans, I guess people that are going through strong difficulties of transgenerational abuse through in such a simple format of one hand, though I'd need both hands to see that.
Well, Brent, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Well, you ask really great questions, and thank you for giving me this forum to kind of go off script a bit to tell people and get the full dimension. If you've gotten this far in this interview, then sign up. Go to The Power in Your Hands and let me read your hands. It's easy. I'm attainable. I'm a nice guy, and I'm not going to show you anything scary. I'm going to show you something that hopefully is lifelong empowering. It's a map you're going to have for the rest of your life. And I really appreciate the forum you gave me, Marianne.
Well, thank you, Brent. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, The Power in Your Hands. The Power in Your Hands is available on Amazon, and make sure to visit Brent's website at thepowerinyourhands.com to order the book and also be part of his community. When you visit the Power in Your Hands website, you can also book your own personalized hand analysis. Other services offered is a 5-minute quiz you can take about your hands. You can book a 15-minute complimentary appointment and register for the free webinar every Sunday. Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break for these messages from our sponsors.
In your hands lie ancestral patterns. These patterns shape how you think, what you struggle with, and experiences you love, your life pattern. we're going into the latest neuroscience of biological hand analysis, a realm beyond palmistry where science and the soul entwine. Hand analysis is the latest method to transform lifelong patterns. I am Master Hand Analyst Brent Bruning. Join us and visit thepowerinyourhands.com.
Looking for a page-turner? Cozy up to a fantasy adventure romance trilogy with The Girl in the Toile Wallpaper by Mary Kay Savarese. The second novel in the Star Writers trilogy, The Star Writers Club, is coming soon. Take the journey. Connect with Mary at www.maryksavarese.com. Her books are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie bookstores.
With Breath Hub, you'll experience the transformative power of breath as it harmonizes your body, mind, and spirit. Recommended by experts in fitness, sports, psychology, and medicine. Meet the scientific way of being well. Breath Hub. Breathe better, live better.
Are you a coffee lover who wants to make a difference? Look no further than Fire Department Coffee, a veteran-owned business that gives back to support first responders in need. Each batch of coffee is freshly roasted right here in the USA by a dedicated team of first responders and coffee experts. So when you enjoy a cup of Fire Department coffee, you're not only drinking high-quality coffee, you're supporting members of your community. Start your day with a coffee that gives back. Visit firedepartmentcoffee.com. That's fire, D-E-P-T, coffee.com.
The book Terminal Cancer is a Misdiagnosis, authored by Danny Carroll, is on sale at Amazon now. Licensed psychologist and psychotherapist Tessa Antia-John-Guerra commented, "This is one of the most empowering books on the topic of cancer you will ever read." Award-winning author T.L. Needham commented, "This recommended book can be understood by anyone seeking answers, hope, and alternatives to a terminal diagnosis. Buy it now on Amazon.com.
Pandemonium. Fast forward 20 years. A U.S. president seizes control of all U.S. missiles, the power grid, the banking system, and every computer in America as he hides in an underground bunker. Pandemonium, a captivating sci-fi thriller where a hidden war, psychics, aliens, artificial intelligence, and transcendental love collide with the latest media technology. Pandemonium, live to all devices. Get your copy on paperback or digital. Free sample at getpsychic.org.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.